everybody. I'm Mike Cox, and I'm taking Steve's place tonight, and I want to welcome everybody to the Let's Go Fishing show. Tonight, my guest is Corey Allen. Corey, welcome.
No, nice. Thanks for having me out here.
I know I ain't the talker that Steve is, so you'll have to bear with me on this here. Want to say hello to Dad and Polly and Gay up there. Steve's off down at Dale Holler with Bill Nichols. And, man, I tell you what, that hurts, knowing I ain't down there with them. I tell you, that's something else. We're going to try to get Corey to tell us about this muskie fishing, where all he fishes, and show us all the baits he uses and everything like that. First thing I want to do, I want to say that we really appreciate the sponsors and want you people to give them your business if possible, because that's what makes this show possible, to bring some stuff that you might want to know about. If you find something that we ain't talked about that you want to know about, call in and let us know. Corey, I guess I'll just turn this thing over to you and let you tell us about where all you're fishing and how big a fish we're catching.
I'll do a little bit of that. Unprompted, I guess. Kind of where to start. Muskie fishing is one of those things in Tennessee that, I mean, I don't know how it didn't get more popular. I have my theories. It's kind of hard. But, I mean, it's a really cool species. It's just part of Tennessee nature. You know, like they're a native fish. It's really cool. Where I grew up in southern Illinois, I grew up about 60 miles north of Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And so we have a lot of bass lakes. We had a lot of rivers and catfishing and stuff like that. But, like, they had to stock all the fish in Illinois. There were no fish, and it was like a fairly popular sport fish. Mm-hmm. And so to come down to Tennessee, and I went to school, and then I used to go to Cookeville. Yeah. So there's some really good muskie fishing over there. Not quite as good as here, but it was amazing to me. Like, I'd read a little bit about fish in Dale Hollow, and I knew they existed, but nobody ever really talked about it. And I happened to bump into one of the fisheries professors one day, and I just asked him some questions. And it turns out he was like, he just pulled out a gazetteer, and he was like, yeah, they're here and 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 here. And I was like, really? So that's kind of how I spent my weekends for a while. I was going around and snooping that stuff out, which is really cool because it's amazing that they can do really well in little rivers. Yeah. They can get really big in little rivers too. And they do really well in these reservoirs. Like, that's really a unique thing that, like, a lot of places you go, you'll have just lakes, or there'll be just a river with some small fish, but there's so many rivers and that become reservoirs here. That you get big fish in small creeks. You can go, I've got places where I just want to go catch some fish. I'm not worried about the size. I'll go down there and have fun, but most of the time we're trying to target some bigger fish. And there's really not a better place anywhere in the South than Mountain Hill. It's pretty fantastic. Mm-hmm. You got to work your butt off, but it makes you think a lot. But I can't say I've ever personally seen a body of water with that many big fish in it. Not down here. It's something special.
I can remember back, I think it was in the early 70s, whenever they turned a bunch of fingerlings loose over there, because they was afraid that they was losing the population of muskie over there. Wouldn't hardly nobody ever catch one out in Milton Hill, and then they turned all them loose, and man, all of a sudden it wasn't just a few years, everybody was catching them.
Yeah, down at the steam plant's what made this place famous. Was I remember reading about that a few years ago. I never came and fished it when it was like popular or really hot because it was just too dang crowded. Like I had friends that came over here and I was like, I kind of like being able to breathe, but you can't argue with the fact that it was a cool opportunity. A lot of people got to experience it for the first time, Like, I know a lot of people, I know a good number of people that, like, had never heard of muskies or muskie fishing, and they just go down and fish from the bank there, and guys are throwing bass lures and stuff, and they have this really cool fish come up and hit, and some of the guys, do it to this day. Like, they're actually pretty hardcore muskie anglers. But that's one of the neat things about Melton Hill is the fact that I don't think until you, like, imagine if you bass fished, right? But the place that you lived, you could only bass fish for 6 months out of the year. Like, you couldn't go fish Dale Hollow right now for smallmouth because it's closed season.
Yeah.
You can't. That's how, like, 90% of muskie fishermen feel. Like, they can't go fish 6 months out of the year. They have a closed season up north on most of the waters, Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin. And then the other waters are usually they either have to ice fish or you just can't fish at all. And that's kind of what's cool is down here, like, I've never seen ice that stopped me from fishing yet. I haven't seen it get that bad. I haven't seen it. Have you? I haven't seen it get that bad yet. Fingers crossed. But I've had to bust through some skim ice, but nothing serious. And it's been, I think, 3 years running. I've managed to put a muskie in the boat on New Year's Day, and that's not something too many people can say. We're really lucky to have this down here.
Well, to me, Tennessee is probably about the farthest part south that you're going to find the muskie.
Yep.
I've not heard of too many of them below Tennessee in the other southern states, So even though, as far as I know, they catch them down the Mississippi and stuff, but I don't know how far down they go. But, to me, it's a northern type fish, it likes that cold water.
Yeah. Well, and that's why they did so well here was like there's several strains, and the ones that we kind of have here are the ones that came from the Ohio River, like all the rivers that flow through Kentucky, and they managed to get here. That's how those ended up here from the Yancey, which then became the Ohio. But like we've got all these cool water streams and stuff like that, and that's initially why they're here. Was nature was like, you guys do all right here, but it is kind of special. I know there were some places in North Georgia, like there were a few for a while. North Carolina has pretty good muskie fishing. Actually, it's really good muskie fishing, but still, Tennessee's kind of, whether or not people know it, it's kind of it holds the crown for the South. It's just got some fantastic waters with such a variety. And the most amazing part, I'll be honest with you, is that we don't usually have to share our spots. It's like we can go out. I know most of the time, if I go fishing, I don't see another guy muskie fishing, which that I didn't really appreciate until I fished some other places. And yeah, sometimes you have to take a number, and it's a really special thing to have waters that are still relatively, underappreciated, underfished. It's cool.
We need to get that, Herschel? No, I got it. Okay. All right, you know what? That muskie, is that the record? They bigger up north or are they bigger down here?
Oh, that's a loaded question because we don't really know yet. I'll tell you this. There's some big fish down here.
Yeah.
We've seen we've hooked, caught some big fish. Fish that'll make anybody up north blush, most bodies of water. The thing about here is that up north, they have 6 months where it's really cold water.
Yeah.
So they don't stress a lot. They don't burn a lot of energy. They don't. It's kind of like they just don't. Their metabolism slows down. It kind of slows down. They live longer, and so they don't grow as fast. But sometimes they'll live to be 30 years. So they'll grow smaller increments. But if they live to be that long, yeah, there's like some 60-inch plus muskies up north. Down here, in most places in the South, an old muskie might be 14, 15, and then it's getting on and up there because they have warmer water temperatures throughout the year. They grow really fast and they just kind of burn out. So if you lived life on a treadmill, you'd tire out pretty quick. You wouldn't last as long. They don't get a lot of metabolic rest. But the cool thing is here, where you got that cold water coming in all year, the trout water coming in, and then sometimes there's some fish, not all the fish, but they got steam plants. They can kind of get in there in the summertime. But still, most of the fish, it's 46 degrees. Never seen it really colder than that because that's what it comes in at, and that's not really super cold for a muskie.
Yeah,
it's cold, but it's not debilitatingly cold. They do quite fine in that, and that's kind of the thing that remains to be seen. Is we've seen some pretty ridiculous growth rates here out of some of these fish. We talk to biologists, they grow really fast. but they don't really stop growing fast, and they don't seem to really get super. They don't tax out early. They're still living to be 13, 14, 15 years, as far as we know.
Mm.
The thing is, once you get past that size, it's getting more and more difficult to document those fish. Like, when they start getting that big and that old, they have ways of disappearing off the grid from anglers. They're tough enough to catch as is. And they definitely don't shock them because they're usually down deep. The long and short of that answer is I think they can get as big, specifically in this body of water, like Melton Hill. I think they can get as big here as they probably can anywhere. As big, maybe bigger, but I don't see any reason why they shouldn't get to, wow,
Yeah.
really big. Yeah.
Well, I like the idea that the milfoil's coming back over at Milton Hill, too.
Yes, yeah, it's growing up really good.
I think that's going to help them even more.
Yeah, the
I think
little
they-
fingerlings like to hide in it.
Yeah.
They
Sure
do well.
Yeah, all them lakes, it does better for everything to have that milfoil in there.
Yeah, it helps them. Sometimes it's a pain in the butt trolling through it, but it does help the environment a little bit. It helps everything kind of balance itself out. It's good.
Well, you said you fished today.
Yeah,
You
we
fished
did.
Milton Hill today?
Yeah.
What do you normally use this time of year over there? Show us, tell us something about you.
Well, some of these aren't really normal times of year presentations, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah.
I just brought a good little accoutrement,
Assortment
I guess.
of it, yeah.
But, I mean, it is slower. I mean, it's colder water this time of year, depending on where you're fishing with current or not. The way I like to put it is, if there's active fish, like, they'll hit something really fast in the wintertime. They're not slow. I've seen them hit things going 4 and 5 miles an hour trolled in the winter. And they can go much faster than that. But it seems like most of the time they're not as active. They're not as willing to expend a lot of energy. And that's where, we take cues from bass guys a lot of times, or walleye guys. We use little bitty, it's a frenzy crank.
Yeah, yeah.
That's I've got a spinning rod just for that. It's a great little crankbait. These little metal tots, those are really cool. And I mean, you could 6 1/2 dozen baits like this. I've caught. There's tons of bass cranks. I love to throw like the 10XD Kevin Van Dam series. Got a big one on a TV show on a Rick Clunn, like the Freak. You ever seen the Freak with that big? It's about that big, and it's got a bill that big, and does that. I got like a 52 on a TV show on that bait, and it's about that size. Well, that's kind of the fun thing about it is like it's such a big fish, but that doesn't mean they always eat big things.
Oh,
but
yeah,
they can.
yeah.
They can, but it's like so. Like we see all kinds of stuff. Like I've seen them pick plastic worms off the bottom. There are times that they'll do a somersault out of the water to come grab a topwater.
Yeah, man, yeah.
Yeah, I mean sometimes it's smaller. One of the cool things we like to experiment with is kind of mixing and matching stuff. Like we had a big fish come up today on that, and we just took a fly, and I didn't have a fly rod, so I had a buddy tie this up, and we tied it to a Carolina rig weight. And I'll be honest, it's pretty amazing what you can do with a Carolina rig weight. You can I put crankbaits behind them and all kinds of stuff, and it gets them down. But there's really no wrong way to catch a muskie, and that's the cool thing. I know so many people get hung up on, like you'll catch one on a bait, and then they think it's like, well, that's a muskie bait. And I'll be the first to tell you, like, you can throw that in the wrong place, the wrong time for a year, and you might be in the right place, but it's the wrong time. They don't even care. They don't care that exists. They don't acknowledge it. Spinner baits like this. I've caught some big fish on this bait.
Yeah.
But they're usually I'm either fishing it really slow, really deep, or on the rare occasion you do have fish that'll just nail it while you're burning it. But like these style musky baits that are so popular with people, I guess the best way of putting stuff like this is most of the time I would call this like a 10% bait, which is kind of funny because like so many people go out and buy stuff like this. Like if we're going musky fishing, we're throwing this stuff. And that's really, stuff like this, I would say, is only really effective on them 10% of the time. Like if you fished 100 days out of the year, you'd probably only really have any kind of success on stuff like this 10% of the time. And not just like on a day-to-day basis. Like over that time, you'd find that the fish have to be in a certain activity level for them to react to these big, gaudy things. It's fun. It's cool. I like throwing that stuff, but there's a time and a place for everything, and I think personally, like, that's why I like catching bass. I like catching catfish. I like catching stripers, walleye. Love catching things. Actually, the one fish I wish that was here that's not is I like catching bowfin. You ever seen those things?
Mm-mm.
Like the dogfish that people catch like down south, and I call them mud muskie. But I used to catch them back home, and they would hit the crap out of these bass baits. They jump and stuff. But the coolest thing about the muskie is I've never seen a fish that, like, literally when I go fishing, I make sure that more than just having a bunch of colors, just a bunch of different style, you know, like there's I know people that will own that in 15 different shades. Like they'll go to Sherwin-Williams and just go down the palette. And I don't think that's important, but like being able to have, like, I look at them like different paint brushes. Like if you're going to like paint a picture, you got to have like different brush strokes and coarse and fine. And that's kind of the way I look at all the different baits is like some days I'm going to need like something that's got a really fine brush. I just want to make be really subtle with what I'm doing because that's really what they're going to respond to. That's where these little crankbaits come in or this fly. Other days you want stuff that's really loud and audacious. You just want to Jackson Pollock it. And the cool thing is anywhere in between that you've got a million different combinations you can do from the top all the way down to 30, 40, 50 feet. I mean, they'll go deep, and it's just kind of cool that I bring all kinds of stuff out muskie fishing, and even then there are days that I'll watch a show and a guy's bass fishing or a guy's salmon fishing, and you'll see him do something that's part of salmon fishing or bass fishing, and I'll think that'll work on a muskie.
Yeah,
and it does. Like it's weird how many things that. I think that applies to a lot of fish more than most people would realize, but I think it definitely applies to muskies. There's really no wrong way.
I think the guy back, I guess it was the 60s and 70s there, back then, caught I think it was a world record up here at Norse.
Oh, a big state record.
State record or something. I can't remember which one it was, but I remember my dad, him and bunch of others, they was going to go up and they was going to fish for them big muskie, and he went out and he bought a dozen of them Cisco kids or something other big old baits to throw behind, and they went up there for 2 or 3 months of fishing up there at North trolling them things, and then all of a sudden the interest just kind of died out. It just that was just one of them things that guy's told him that's what he caught that on, and
But he'll do that, man. It's It is a different thing, and it's not for everyone. I'm not gonna lie, it's not for everyone. If you like catching fish, don't muskie fish. I mean, I'm just being honest. Like, if you want something that's kind of cool and you can do you can literally tell people all the time they want to get into muskie fishing, and they're like, well, what do I need? I'm like, you bass fish? And most guys are like, well, yeah. I'm like, you already got about 30% of what you need. Like, you got a good medium heavy setup. All you need to do is put a leader on. And most of your bass baits, you'll probably end up using those more than you will the muskie baits. Believe it or not. Sounds weird, but you'd be shocked.
Well, I mean, they eat the same thing the bass and stuff eat. They eat the minnows and the crawfish. Anything that moves there that they can get in their mouth. So.
Well, I definitely, like, one of the first things I do when I go fishing is I meet a bass guy. I ask him, I'm like, you seen any muskies bite today, or what do they hit on, because it's like, I could spend 10 hours fishing the big stuff, and if I get out there and I talk to 5 bass guys that say, muskie hit a buzzbait, I'm just going to be like, okay, let's go throw a buzzbait.
I know you probably try to keep up with the fish on about where they're at, just like I would the crappie down there when I go down there and start finding the crappie and say, hey, they're in 10 foot of water, they're in 20 foot of water or something where I'm catching them. You kind of keep up with the muskie like that too to know if you go quite often that you can go back down there and get back on the same death pattern or something. You may have to change type bait, but like this time of year, I'm catching crappie at 30 foot deep. What about you trying to find your muskie at right now?
It all depends, and I'm not dancing around and answering. It really does all depend. I mean, I will say in the wintertime, most of the time, they are going to be deeper. Like, they're going to be down 15, 20, 25 feet more than they are going to be shallow. I think that's more often than not, most of the year, especially for the big fish. I think they like the deeper water.
Do you troll more in the winter or in the summer?
Oh, I troll a lot in the summer. I troll a lot. I troll a little bit every day.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to check. Because like almost everything that swims, like you've got to drop off, or break line. It's like I could spend 3 hours casting this desk. Right? I could take the bait and I could just drive down it in 30 seconds. Check. It's one way to check a depth.
Yeah.
So I mean, a little bit every day. We do pretty well trolling in the summer. I would say we catch more big fish trolling simply because we're able to keep the bait down deeper more.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a magic answer, and trust me, it's not about how many hours you troll. Like you could troll the wrong stuff all the time and never see a fish, and then you hook up with one just by happenstance. But it's challenging. It's not. It really. I mean, I'm trying to find a way to put it into like simpler terms where it's like, well, you do this, and you do this, and you do this, and then every time I think about one of those situations, I'm like, well, yeah, but what if? Well, yeah, but what if? I mean, I've seen fish hit topwater in the winter. I've seen them go after really fast things, really small. You never really know.
What's the temperature that one would prefer? Like they say, a largemouth prefers 72, a smallmouth 62, and walleye 72 degrees, and they say you follow that temperature down till you find that warmest water closest to what they prefer, and that's where they'll be. And you can watch the balls of minnows too, as the weather changes and they go to getting deeper or whether they're all top.
And that's, I mean, I think that they kind of work codependently with bait. Like, they're not always, it's kind of weird. Like, sometimes, especially in the winter, you'll just see everything hunched down on the bottom.
Yeah.
And there will literally be muskies in amongst shad. It's like the wolves sleeping with the sheep. And they don't care. They're chilling. They're inactive. They could not care less. And then you pop something down, like a jig or something, and you can actually watch them come up on the graph and come look at your bait. And they're surrounded by 500,000 of little shad like this, and they don't want it. And there are times that they'll run down something like that. The temperature thing, as far as optimal, like if I go out and I actually get excited about there being a surface temperature, it has more to do with how I know that's going to affect their body than it does. Like, I do think that they will gravitate, like this time of year, you can find areas that warm up a little bit. That'll affect it a little bit, because they're in this is springtime. They do have that innate instinct that we're starting to want to make babies. So they're going to start moving into areas that are a little bit warmer. They can sense it. So like if there's a creek that's putting out maybe 2 or 3 degree warmer water than the surrounding area, they'll go in there. Sometimes if it's shallow water and it heats up over the day, you'll see some fish. It's almost like they'll be sitting in the channel, and if you give it long enough, they'll be able to pick up on that heat, and they will find themselves move up onto some of the shallow flats a little bit. Temperature affects them. Usually they'll gravitate towards something slightly warmer. I personally like to fish muskies over 69, 70 degrees.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
Melton Hill always stays cool. So it doesn't. It stays cool. You guys know that. Like, it stays cool through the summer, so it's not the same problem. And they can always go down and find cooler water. But once, granted, the fact that surface temps don't mean that's how warm it is down there, but it's a good indicator. Once it gets into that temperature range, their metabolism's speeding up. They're going to be more active more often, and let's just face it, that's when they start kind of hitting the fun musky baits more. And you get like the boat side crashes and the follows and stuff. Colder water, not as much. Not really as much. I mean, that's why the steam plant is so popular. Is they get that warm water in there, and all of a sudden the fish start kind of acting like muskies a little bit. They start following things, chasing stuff down. It's fun. But of course, that's not in any way natural. It's not a natural situation. But when it gets, May, June, once they kind of get done with post-spawn, and it gets into that low 70-degree temperature range, it can be pretty fun. They can actually be pretty fun. I'm not gonna lie.
Ain't no doubt about it. You know, they're a horse of a different color when you get them on the line. You know, pulling real hard. You out there with 20-pound test line or 10-pound test line bass fishing, and then all of a sudden you get something that big on there with some teeth, and it takes off with your bait. It's kind of like the rock fish in a way. You got to crank up the big motor and run them down.
Yeah, run them down. They don't fight as hard as the rockfish, but they do fight. They're more like, I tell people all the time is if you're gonna bass fish on Melton Hill, you might as well put on a wire leader.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think some of the bass we've caught fishing this stuff with wire leader that's 130 pounds. I don't know if they care that much. You put a light one on, but I don't know how many times. Like, guys catch, cook. I don't even would like to venture how big some of the fish are. Some bass guys that have hooked and they've bitten off. And maybe they don't want them. That's cool. But, you get to keep your bait. And, might get to pose with a big fish, too. Like, I think it's kind of cool. As much fun as I have occasionally catching, like, we got, like, a 25-inch largemouth a couple summers ago, muskie fishing on. Actually hit that bait.
Yeah.
It was skinny, but it was a big largemouth. Like, that's kind of neat. Like, I wasn't trying for that, but, it's a neat little bonus. But especially if you're bass fishing in the areas around muskie, might as well just put on a light wire leader. Saves you from losing a bait.
It's the same scenario, I guess. Whatever you're fishing with, you be down there and fishing little old small minnows, inch and a half long or something, and all of a sudden you catch a 50-pound catfish 30 foot deep, 35, and then all of a sudden you're throwing a big old topwater plug or throwing a 30 plus, and all of a sudden you come up with a dang largemouth or something that's not 8 inches long or 6 inches long, where he's attacked that thing, and you think, now how in the world does that fish think he's ever going to eat something that big? But you never know what size bait they're going to really try to get. But
oh yeah, I've actually had a couple friends in the boat where I've gotten kind of mad at them because I've told them we're just fun fishing, and they want to fish for bass, and it's cool. I don't mind. Do whatever you want. But I'm like, for the love of God, please put on a wire leader. Like I bring little wire leaders out. I'm like, just humor me and put this on. And they're like, no, I don't want to do that. It'll affect the action. I'm like, this is a 20-pound leader. It will be just fine. The action will be fine. And they go to set the hook on a Cinco or a jig, and and it's gone. And they're just like, what happened? I'm like, remember I told you to put on a wire leader? And it's, it's a couple, occasionally they get them in, but I've had a couple guys that they get bummed because they get to fight it for a minute and then it's gone, and I'm just you lost your bait, you lost your memory. It's you could have had a really big fish there, man.
Show us your rod and tell us about it and stuff, or what you
Let me see if I can actually
normally use it.
All right. Well, I do use smaller stuff. Like, I don't just use this kind of stuff. But I guess if you were going to say, what do you musky fish with? Something like this. I have a penchant. I've used this reel for almost 20 years. It's sentimental value. But you want to use something with a little bit of torque, at least 20 pounds of drag. Spool up with some 80-pound test. I use a lot of 80-pound test braid. You definitely want to use braid because there's no stretch.
Yeah.
And so that's a big thing with muskie. It's not that they're strong. They are strong, but they're not like stripers or catfish. They just don't have that kind of energy to sustain. But they got really hard jaws. They got real bony jaws.
Yeah.
So you gotta punch the hook in to get it to stick. They've got a really good. I know, and it's funny. A lot of times we'll catch muskies, and normally they're not that hard to get out, And every once in a while we'll catch. I got a 40-pound striper the other night. I was fishing, and that thing took forever to get out of its mouth because we were so used to setting the hooks in the muskie, and I just drilled it into its face, and you forget that their jaws literally are so much harder than all the bass, and of course crappie and catfish and stuff. So you want lots of things that don't lose a lot of energy from a hook set. So stuff like this braid, using big heavy hooks. The leaders, of course, have no stretch, and using really, really, really stiff rods. They used to be a lot shorter.
Mm-hmm.
Now I prefer something. I think there's no reason to get something under 9 feet.
Mm.
It just gives you more leverage, more control, more versatility with what you're going to throw, and they whip the crap out of the fish really quickly. I mean, this is a custom rod. It's a St. Croix.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, there's a million different brands. And St. Croix makes really good stuff, like even in a budget line all the way up to the top. Bass guys know that line, too. But if you get, like, a good, at least 8, I prefer over 9-foot stick. Get a heavy-duty reel. Like Abu Garcia makes a good line of musky reels. Shimano's legendary. Daiwa Lexus are pretty good. Okuma Komodos are fantastic. I'm the only guy I know that fishes with a 20-year-old reel, but got a lot of fish. Thank you.
Let's check this out and see what Steve's got to say. Go ahead there.
Hey, how's it going on the Let's Go Fishing show?
Well, we're still catching muskie right now.
Oh, are you?
Yeah. What's the smallmouth fishing doing?
Well, we down, David DeVal's down here with us, and Max, and Bill and I, and David had 13 or 14 today, and Bill and I floated 12 and had one to pull off, and Max, I think, had 4, and we had some nice fish. We got some good film, caught a couple of big largemouth and some nice smallies, 4.5, close to 5 pound range. We had some nice fish. Sure did. But we were just going to wait. It was just kind of a learning process. Kind of got pinchy water up the lake from Star Point. So we fished. But the farther down the lake we got, the better the fish were in the clear water.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what the story is down here, and is everything going good on your end?
Yeah, everything going good up here, and just ain't down on the lake like it should be.
Yeah, I heard that. Well, I appreciate you doing the show for me, Mike, and you don't know how much. I want to say I forgot to tell Sherry happy birthday last week, so I want to do that tonight before I get in trouble.
That's too late.
Back home.
You're too late on that.
Too late? You done it for me?
No.
Oh, Lord. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I know I'm late, but I told her I'd make up for it tonight, and then wound up down here, me and Bill, and so yeah, I'm a week late, but that's better than nothing. So, Curry, I hope you're watching, and happy birthday.
Yeah.
So, Mike, we'll touch base with you guys tomorrow, and see how you're doing, and that kind of thing, and I know you're doing a good job on the show. Just go ahead and continue that. Folks, do remember all our sponsors and all those special announcements with the Reynolds sale he's having down at Glen Reynolds Racing Marine, and then the Sportsman's Expo, the 27th. Don't want to forget that for sure. So, Mike, I appreciate you, bud, and I'll talk to you later.
All right, save a few for me. Maybe I'll get down there one of these days.
Yeah, I promise you we ain't going to save them none unless we just have to.
All right. Tell Bill said hello. Max, too.
They're sitting here listening, and they said the same back.
Okay.
All right, bud. See you later.
We'll see.
All right.
All right, Corey. We can go back to talking about them rods again, man. You say you like to fish a 7 or 8 footer?
7's actually kind of on the short side, for me. Yeah.
You go longer.
I usually, for lots of reasons. Like I said, there's just not. You get a lot more versatility. You get a lot more bang for your buck just in the range of motion when you're using a longer rod. Because to get some of these big baits to actually do something, like you've got to put some oomph into it.
Was there a difference in that rig there? You use that for the trolling or for the casting?
And that's where I'm a little bit different. Some guys, they like buy trolling rods, and they've got trolling setups, and they've got 5-rod holders and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm more kind of, this is me trolling. I'm like, okay, I'll cast it. I'll be like, throw it behind me. I'm like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
And we'll troll, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. I'll take a bait, usually holding the rod. It's like, oh, checked it, did what I did, okay, back to casting. We're just literally, like, when I do it, I'm just trying to pick apart the water. But trolling rods, like when people buy a trolling rod is basically kind of just, usually it's an e-glass or fiberglass rod. They're more bendy, like they don't have the same, like, graphite, like the whip, they don't respond, and you don't have nearly the sensitivity. That's why I don't really use a lot of trolling rods. I just troll with graphite rods. You can accommodate a lot of that, the fact that they actually design the flex throughout and load up. So it's better for hook sets when you're just putting them in rod holders and you're dragging baits. It helps a little bit. If I'm doing that, I'll just accommodate with the lighter drag a little bit so it doesn't just pull out of their mouth. But those rods are, I hate to say it, they're kind of virtually useless for casting. I think you're way better off. Like, it's not like if I decide to drag a bait behind the boat with this rod, it explodes. It's just a stick, you know? And I think the casting rods do, like a rod like that, it's an excellent trolling rod.
Well, when you fish the small baits like this, do you use the bell sinker deal that you was talking about, or you throwing it on, say, 10-pound test braid or something on a medium action or something like that?
Normally that. Normally if I'm throwing smaller stuff, I'll downsize it, even if I'm throwing it on like a Carolina rig weight, just because you get a little bit more sensitivity out of it. And the other thing is too, like, this is something I throw on the heavy rig just because it's bulky.
Yeah.
And you can get more, like, to get the flies to pulse down, like, you can rip them a lot farther. Seems to work better, and they've got pretty stout hooks too. But the thing is, you're using a little bit lighter wire leader. A lot of times to get some of these baits to do what you want, I couldn't put them on a heavy leader. They wouldn't run right. It's so heavy, it makes this thing sink like a rock. So you have to use lighter equipment. And to do that, to really get the full effect of it, you kind of have to balance that out with what you're using. So, I mean, I use a 7-foot. I've got like a 7-foot medium heavy spinning rod outfit I use. I've got some bass outfits. And then I've got a few musky-sized outfits. But there's definitely a time and a place. Like, that's where I tell people all the time when I said, if you bass fish, you already got at least 30% of what you need to do to catch muskies. You've got 30% of the tools. And that's not just the baits. That's like the rods, the reels. You've got decent bass setups. You've got decent spinning rod setups. You've not only got the ability to go catch muskies, because they'll hit anything, but you've got better access to some of the things that are going to produce fish more consistently than a lot of guys that just go by musky tackle. I mean, I can't tell you how many times stuff like this, these little bitty baits, will outfish that stuff that cost 5 times as much.
Yeah.
Because the fish don't care.
I've seen some of the new swim baits that they had over at the show there. And I was amazed, kind of like that red and silver one you got right there, that they've been bass fishing with. Big old pieces of plastic.
Oh, yeah.
$200 for one of them things. I said, my God. I said, if one broke my line after paying $200 for it.
I don't know who kissed that and blessed it, or what kind of champagne bottle was broken over it. I mean, I respect I respect craftsmanship.
They're getting huge, Joe. I mean,
they're
getting bigger and bigger, and they cost more and more. And
when I tell some of these guys that are big on that really expensive bass swim bait stuff, is I'm like, you can go buy a musky bait that looks just like that, and it's like it's funny to me because like we were the guys that had the expensive baits. Now the bass guys are just like, oh yeah, and we're just like, well, you got us. But you can find a lot of really good analog, like these big swim bait crays for bass and stuff. You can find an analog in musky fishing that is just as good, probably better built, just to be frank, and a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
I mean,
have you tried the A-rig stuff?
Oh, have I tried the A? Yeah, I love the A-rig.
Do you?
I absolutely love the A-rig.
Do you catch some on that too?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and the cool thing about the A-rig is I've got like 3 or 4 or 5 different variants that I use, which is kind of neat. In the fact that the Alabama rig and the popularity it gained, you can throw multiple baits, which that's cool like that, and especially with schooling bass. It makes amazing sense. Because then they just get all excited, and that's why guys, I've done it before muskie fishing. I got like a 21-inch and an 18-inch bass at the same time. I thought I had a nice muskie. I was kind of bummed. But what I think is neat about it with muskie fishing is, number one, the range of depth you can get with those things. Like you can fish them all the way down. You can sink them down. People say, I'd love doing that. The sizes that you can put on different Alabama rigs. Like I've caught 50 inchers on the shad that size where you got 3 of them. And you'll watch them when they come around and follow it. They won't just try to take the whole thing. They'll like pick off one of the shad. They're not trying to just kill the whole school. You'll literally watch them. It's like they'll follow the spread, and then they'll literally come around and they'll just pick off one of them. It's like weird. But like I've got one I'm going to try to find time to build this week. I get ideas, and then I get distracted by the next idea. So I never make the idea that I had before that one.
Yeah, I know.
And I guess about 6 months ago, I was like, you need to get a big old pyramid sinker and make 3 arms come off of it and hang it so you can, because, vertical jigging an Alabama rig like that. And then when it hits the bottom, pyramid hits, and the baits just kind of dangle like that, and you flush it up. So that's probably, hopefully, I can do that this week, because that could come in really handy right now. But I've got like straight Alabama rigs that you just throw out, reel back in. I've got this one cool one that you got the head, and then you got 2 arms and 3 arms. And the 2 arms on top are, call them twin engines. They're 2 little French blades. They're those little fluted blades. And then the 3 shad on the bottom, anywhere from 3 to 6 inches. I like the little 5-6 inch swim shad, because they seem to sink a little bit better. But like that's probably my all-time favorite personal Alabama rig customization that I do, because it always tracks upright when I'm reeling it. Like if you put those 2 little blades on the top and then 2 the way down, it'll always track upright anytime you're doing it. And the neat thing is, when you pause it, I'll do it, instead of throwing it out like this a lot of times, I'll throw it out and I'll do this, let it sink. I'll pull it. I'll do this, because what that does with those 2 blades, you pull it, and then as soon as it falls, the baits on the bottom pull it down, and those 2 blades keep it centered. So you literally watch it just go down like this with the shad swimming down. I've had some really nice fish. Like as soon as it goes whoop, 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 thump, you just feel it stop. Yeah. Those muskies will come up and grab it. You've had bass come up and grab it. Seems like it. I mean, that I'm a big fan of the Alabama rig, and it's kind of cool because not most muskie guys are like, Alabama rig. Well, what's that all about? There's no muskies in Alabama. I'm like, you got me.
I can see that. It's been a heck of a rig. Everybody was using it. A lot of big fish caught on it and everything. And I didn't know how much you used it. And do you use a spoon and jig straight up and down a lot over them? Do you find
not enough? How about that? I don't do it enough.
Oh, you don't do it enough?
Well, meaning that I'm stupid for not doing it more. Especially this time of year. And it's funny you should say that, because that's one of the things I thought today. Is I was like, I should have jigged the spoon. See, that's another thing they've got crazy about. A lot of them now, they're 10, 12-inch spoons that they're dropping down. Where we used to 2 or 3 inch sidewinder or a Hopkins or something like that. Is all you ever used, or like a little silver buddy. And now then they're throwing 10, 12-inch spoons out there at them. I thought, man. And I've seen, I'm not seeing.
That looks like my problem on that boat.
It's like a shoehorn is what it looks like, some of those. But like, I know I was in Edgemoor the other day, and I didn't really, and I was just like, what in the name of God is that? And it was a big, it was a spoon as big as.
Yeah, that's fun.
I was like, really? Yeah. I mean, I don't doubt the bass would hit the crap out of it, but I was like, that is like big spoon. Like a really big spoon. Like I've seen those, and like that's manageable. But you just like see that thing, or the what was the one that was popular for a while? I don't know what, butterfly jig. Yeah. You guys use? I'd heard about those where you had the 2 hanging things. I haven't tried them. I mean, they'll literally hit anything. I've seen them hit the dumbest things. One of the things that when it's a rule in muskie fishing is, I think in any fishing, especially muskie fishing, like how many times somebody will throw something out the line will snag, or this thing will wrap, and then the bait's just doing this kind of a spiral thing. It's not working right. It's like, if that happens, just don't rush it back. Like, just let it. We've got one bait in particular. It's a glide bait, and it is notorious for fouling on itself.
Mm-hmm.
But like, every time we make ourselves, instead of being like, oh crap, fix it, get it right. We've had too many times we're reeling it back, and a fish will just wreck it when it's just doing a spiral like that. And not entirely sure where I was going with that. I got a little tired from the water today. But that's kind of what's interesting about it, is there really is no limit to what, like, you can literally probably ask me, like, if there's a bass thing that will work on muskie, and I'd be hard pressed to find one that I'd have to say no. In fact, I don't think one exists. I've yet to see a bass tactic that I've not almost immediately seen about 3 or 4 times, like in a fishing situation where it's like, I should probably do that. Drop shotting. I should probably do more drop shotting. You should probably jig more spoons, and stick with it. I should probably Carolina rig constantly, and I don't. I try to make myself Carolina rig, and that's something bass guys, and I don't know if bass guys do this, but something I tell them all the time. I'm like, you guys really got to try this one at home. Is like, see how I had that rigged up like that? I do this with everything. I buy those little pre-rigged things just because they're cheap and they're there, and you can make beefed up ones. It's like, oh, you got to just tie it on and clip it. I know so many guys are. That's why we have, thank God, we have 10XDs, and you've seen that big Skeet Reese bass crank. It's like that big. I love that thing. That's a good musky bait. But even then, it's huge. And that thing's designed to get down like 30 feet on a cast.
Yeah.
Which, that's cool. I like that, working that thing down. And you can troll it down to oblivion. But you could bang the hull of Titanic with that bait on the right day. That thing goes down a long way. Trolling. But I tell guys all the time, I'm like, one of the easiest things to do with bass fishing, I'm pretty sure it's tournament legal. I don't see why it's not. Is like, instead of having to buy a crankbait that is going to dive 30 feet, or like what guys do nowadays where they do a long lining thing, right?
Yeah.
They trolling motor and then they let it down. And I've talked to guys that have lost 2 and 3 fish on a single cast because they'll hook it, right? And then it'll get off because they've got so much line out. I was like, just take your crankbaits and just do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you Carolina rig worms all the time. Take those little bitty crankbait. That works on muskie. Works on everything. But take those Carolina rigs and instead of having to crank your crankbait down, just throw them out and let them sink to the bottom, and then they float up, and then you just reel them really slow. And that's just one of the cool things about it. Like, something we came up with muskie fishing because we wanted to get a little crankbait down deep. Like, that's something I think a lot of bass guys could, like, totally wreck a lot of fish on, like Carolina rigging the Raplas, and maybe they do that. Maybe I'm dumb, but I know when I've talked to guys that bass fish and we spitball ideas back and forth, they're like, well, I haven't even thought of that. And I'm like, you should try that. That'll work. That'll work.
Yeah. Do you ever go down and fish the Emery? I know we had a guy call in the other week was telling us that they was catching muskie down there.
No, which part of the Emery are we talking about?
Big Emery going back up toward Harriman there, way on up the river.
Then I'll probably go fish it tomorrow now. No, I don't fish it as much as I probably should. Like, I know, that was one of the, when I lived in Cookville, I actually came over there and fished before I ever went to Melton Hill. And we had, like 3 followers one morning, and I thought that was pretty cool. And then I never came back. I came and fished the Obed a little bit when I was over there. And that's fun, really scenic, really good river. I never went back to Harriman until I came back here. And I moved here a few years ago. We did get a 51-incher out of there last year.
Yeah. At
the Emery and Harriman. There are some big fish. And especially this time of year, they'll start moving up. But yeah, I musky fished the Emery.
I didn't know what, that's like right now, if you went to North, would you go way up in the headwaters of the river, or would you stay down on the lower end of the lake and fish?
And me being brutally honest, I've never fished Norris, not even once. And I'm a little bit embarrassed of that. I don't believe I've ever even been on a boat on Norris. That's not to say that there aren't some. I'm sure there's some muskies in there still. I hear about every once in a while caught. And there's, rest assured, I can guarantee you there are some big ones in there. This time of year, it all depends kind of like what's going on over there. But I'll say this: if they're in deep water right now, which in the wintertime is somewhat likely, they like being as deep as that lake is, they'll be suspended over stuff. Like if there's a channel, they might be suspended. If that lake's like, 150 feet deep a lot of times and that stuff. It's like a deep lake, right?
Deeper,
Yeah, like they won't be down on the bottom, but like they'll suspend above the creek channel. Like you'll see them on your graph. This is just experience with other waters like that, but I can kind of generalize what they'll do there. But this time of year, in the next month, they're definitely going to start not doing that. Like, and most of the time, like if you were going to fish for a muskie on Norris right now, I would try to find a creek arm that was putting out probably stained water, more ideally. Some a little bit of current, maybe like even if it's 2 degrees warmer or 3 degrees, if you can find a creek that's 2 to 3 degrees warmer than like the surrounding lake, it's gonna be a magnet. Like they'll go in there, and it could be a really good shot at a big fish.
There's been some big ones come out there over the years.
Yeah, there has. I'm stupid for not going over there more.
I'm telling you. I wanted to tell everybody about Steve mentioned it there, about the big sale they're having down at Reynolds Racing and Marine on the Herschel. I think you got a flyer there to pull up for us there. $750 cash back on the 2015 models, and I think it's 2.99 financing for 36 months and $250 cash back. He's got a lot more things, big sale on these boats down there if you're interested in a boat. And he's having a sale on his storage units down there Saturday. They're going to empty out some storage units and try to move some stuff around. They need to get rid of it, and they're having a storage container sale. I think it starts at 10 o'clock, so any of you people interested in some of that, you got super deals on all kinds of stuff, fishing equipment, for your boats or anything, trolling motors, batteries, anything you need, parts, oil, anything like that. You just need to give Glenn a call or go by there. Sure, he's got a good bunch of inventory down there. He'd like to sell you at a good price. And we do want to mention all the other sponsors too, the roofers, and the sign shop, Citizens Bank, 5 locations, Tim's Tires, Knoxville Rescue Ministries, and that's Area Rescue Ministries, yeah, and Edgemore. I want to give Jim a shout there if you need something to fish with. Roan Street Grill, I know you ain't going to find no better eating than down there. And Pamela's Ann's Fudge and Candies in Harbor Springs down there. If you got a sweet tooth like me, you'll probably go down there quite often. Shared Treasures out there in Mount Pisgah, Bible Printing Ministry. Anybody that would like to help them out, volunteer your time or donate some money to them to help them print up a bunch of Bibles and stuff and take them to a lot of different countries. They take them all over and let everybody know about the Word of God. So anybody wants to help them out, that'd surely be appreciated. Corey, where do you think would be the best place to catch a big muskie? In the middle part of Milton Hill, steam plant, or down on the lower end right now?
Oh, well, I mean, I ain't gonna lie to you. If the steam plant comes on, go fish. If the steam plant comes on, give it a day.
Well, I've heard that they're going to do a big outage over there, and it may be all summer.
Like they might not run it all summer, or they might?
Yeah, that's what I was hearing. may have a pretty long outage over there. And once they break this spring, and they may not run it all summer long. It may be way into the fall before they get it back going. So
yeah, I mean, I
think that'll affect them quite a bit.
Nah, I don't think. I mean, they're more dispersed than what most people think. The steam plant makes it like it pulls a concentrated amount of fish from a small area of the lake into a smaller area of the lake. But there's fish all over the lake. I mean, we've caught fish all the way down to the dam, everywhere in between. I will say though, like it seems like there is more fish, I guess, per acre above Clark Center Park.
Yeah.
I guess would be a good thing to say. That's or it's simply that water's a lot easier to fish because there's so much more shallow water. You know, it's like
yeah.
Like that, it's either there's more fish or it's just simply easier to fish. I'll say that.
Well, I found that right there seems like it's where the temperature starts changing a lot.
Yes,
and once you get down to where the old big reactor was, it really changes.
Yep.
That's where the really warm water stays because it spreads out so far. It seems like the big reactor area down stays a lot warmer. And of course, you get closer to the North Dam, it's going to get a lot colder.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's a good area in there. I like every bit of that.
Reactor Bend is a fantastic area, though. That's a spot. Not only is that a beautiful place to fish, there are some beautiful fish down there. It's not easy to fish, but it's worth it.
Well, if folks want to get a hold of you to go, where they need to call you or go to Edgemore and get with Jim, and he's got your card over there or something.
Jim's got my digits. He sends me some business. That's a good, I like Jim. I like Edgemore. That's a cool little local shop to have out your back door. If you want to go on a guide trip, which I didn't know, it's not a big deal if you don't. That's cool. I just like talking about them. My phone number is 931 area code 261-2483. We do have a website, Tennessee Valley Muskie Authority. I'm not even gonna try to spell all that out. Just to write it down. If you search anything close to that, Tennessee Valley Muskie Authority, I guarantee you there's only one of those that'll come up. So that's us. But, honestly, we're not even so much about that. It's just we like to kind of get people into them and think that they're cool. It's a cool fish. It's out your back door. They get really big. You got a really good shot at a fish here that even if you only catch one and you catch on this lake, your one fish on this lake has a really good shot of being better than some other guy's biggest fish on another body of water somewhere else in the world.
Folks, we'll see you next week. Have a good night.
Country Fresh Foods. You may not know the name, but you definitely know the taste. Our homemade fudge is shipped all over the country. Its quality is unmatched, and it's made right here in Oliver Springs. But you don't have to travel all over to enjoy it. You can get it right here at our retail store, Pamela Ann's Fudge, Candy, and Gifts. The highest quality fudge in a countless variety of flavors. And we also carry a variety of candy and unique gifts for you to enjoy. Come enjoy the taste you have loved for years at Pamela Ann's Fudge, Candy, and Gifts in Oliver Springs, a division of Country Fresh Foods.
Rodney and Kay Harback invite everyone to come on over to Rome Street Grill to experience a pleasant dining experience with them. Rodney knows how important it is to get folks back to work after lunch, so they have a speedy lunch at Rome Street Grill. They will get you in and get you out. Every day they have a special at lunch or order off the menu. So go visit the fine folks at Rome Street Grill. Call them at 865-285-6025. That's Rome Street Grill, across from Jerry Duncan Ford in Harriman. Call them at 865-285-6025.